Hey guys. Imagine finding a coin in your loose change that at first glance looks ordinary, just another Lincoln wheat penny you might overlook, but then realizing it's actually a 1946 USA wheat penny with a surprising face value of $871 because of its rarity, historical significance, and collectible demand, a piece of post World War II American history struck at a time when the nation was transitioning from wartime to peacetime production, when the U.S. Mint was using leftover wartime planchets, experimenting with metal compositions, and creating subtle varieties that would later become prized treasures among numismatists, and the 1946 wheat penny stands as a perfect example of how a small copper coin can tell a big story, minted in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, with millions produced but only a fraction surviving in pristine condition due to circulation wear, environmental damage, and the melting down of coins for their metal content in later decades. Yet within that production run exist key varieties and mint errors that make certain examples extraordinarily valuable, from double die obverse where the date, mint mark, or inscription show dramatic doubling visible to the naked eye, to repunched mint marks where the D or S was struck more than once, creating overlapping impressions that delight error collectors, to off-center strikes where part of the design is missing, to broad strikes that expand the coin's diameter beyond normal specifications, to clipped planchets where a portion of the metal blank was missing before striking, each type of error contributing to the uniqueness and desirability of the coin. And some of the most coveted 1946 wheat pennies are those with full original red luster, untouched by time, which command premium prices in high-grade uncirculated condition certified by top grading services like PCGS and NGC, with MS-67 and MS-68 examples being particularly rare and sought after, often reaching auction prices in the hundreds or even thousands, and when combined with a dramatic mint error or a rare die variety, those prices can easily soar into the upper hundreds, like the documented $871 sales figure for a top-tier specimen, driven by competitive bidding between seasoned collectors who know that certain coins appear on the market only once in a generation, making them worth paying a premium for. And it's fascinating to remember that in 1946 the coin's face value was just 1 cent, purchasing a stick of gum or a handful of candy, yet today, that same coin can buy a brand new smartphone, a luxury dinner, or even contribute to a mortgage payment, which shows how the passage of time, coupled with scarcity and demand, can elevate the value of something so small. And the 1946 wheat penny also has an important place in numismatic history as the first full year after the wartime steel cent experiment of 1943, when copper was restored as the standard composition, though some leftover zinc-coated steel planchets from 1943 accidentally made their way into later years, creating ultra-rare transitional errors. And while no confirmed 1946 steel cents have surfaced in public auctions, rumors and unverified finds keep collectors searching, because the discovery of one would likely make headlines and fetch tens of thousands, perhaps even more. And in terms of design, the wheat penny carries the enduring image of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, the first U.S. coin to feature a real person rather than a symbolic figure surrounded by "In God We Trust" above, "Liberty" to the left, and the date with mint mark to the right, while the reverse bears the classic wheat ears framing 1 cent and United States of America, with E pluribus unum arcing above, a simple yet iconic design by Victor David Brenner that lasted from 1909 to 1958. And because 1946 falls in the middle of that long series, it's often overlooked by casual collectors, yet those in the know seek out high-grade examples with eye appeal, strong strike, and rarity factors that distinguish them from the millions of common worn coins, and market trends show that wheat pennies in general have been steadily appreciating in value, with collectors driven by nostalgia, the thrill of the hunt, and the desire to complete date and mint mark sets, so even modestly priced examples can grow in value over time, especially if preserved in a protective holder away from environmental damage. And while some might dismiss the idea of a penny being worth hundreds as unrealistic, auction records and private sales prove otherwise, with passionate bidders willing to pay top dollar for coins that check all the boxes of rarity, condition, and desirability. And the story of the 1946 wheat penny is not just about money but about history, the craftsmanship of the U.S. Mint, the quirks of human error in production, and the enduring appeal of coin collecting as a hobby that bridges generations, because a grandfather might pass down a small coin album to a grandchild, sparking a lifelong passion that eventually leads to uncovering a gem worth hundreds, just as today's coin hunters eagerly search through pocket change, rolls from the bank, and estate sales hoping to spot that glint of red copper and a date that could change their day. And that's what makes the 1946 wheat penny so exciting. It's a reminder that treasures still exist in everyday life if we take the time to look, and perhaps your next handful of change will contain a coin struck almost 80 years ago, holding not just monetary value but a piece of America's story. And if you enjoy discovering the hidden worth of coins like this and want to keep learning about the rarest finds, the market values, and the fascinating history behind them, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join us for the next journey into the world of coins worth big money. Next, imagine holding in your hand a small piece of copper that most people would pass over without a second glance, yet that same coin could secretly be worth hundreds of times its face value. And today we dive into the fascinating and little-known story of the 1951 wheat penny from the United States, a coin that might look ordinary to the untrained eye but has a history, rarity, and value that makes collectors' hearts race and wallets open wide, because while it was minted in large numbers during a post-war America eager to push forward into a new era of prosperity, certain surviving examples of this coin in pristine condition or with unique characteristics have fetched values as high as $282, a staggering return on something originally worth just 1 cent. And to understand why this coin has achieved such desirability, we have to look at its backstory, the minting process. The San Francisco Mint's role in 1951, the subtle design details, and the quirks that make one coin vastly more valuable than another, starting with the fact that the wheat penny itself was part of a long-running Lincoln Cent series first introduced in 1909 to honor the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, a design by Victor David Brenner that featured the now famous portrait of Lincoln on the obverse and 2 stylized wheat stalks on the reverse, a design that symbolized American agriculture and resilience. And the 1951 version came at a time when coinage was still produced primarily from 95% copper, 5% tin and zinc, giving it a warm reddish-brown hue when fresh from the dyes, though time and circulation have darkened many to a deep brown or even black, which is why those rare red uncirculated examples command the highest premiums. Yet the coin's value doesn't just come from its condition, because errors and varieties are a major factor too, and the 1951 is known to have several, including repunched mint marks where the S was struck more than once and appears doubled or tripled under magnification, die cracks that show raised lines or bumps on the coin's surface, off-center strikes where the design is misaligned, and even rare double-die obverse where parts of Lincoln's profile or inscriptions like Liberty and In God We Trust show doubling that's visible to the naked eye, all of which can multiply the coin's value well beyond the already impressive $282 figure, making it a prime example of why numismatics is as much about detective work as it is about history. And, speaking of history, the San Francisco Mint in 1951 was operating at full capacity to meet national coin demand, producing over 136 million of these pennies, which might make you think they're common and thus not worth much. But the truth is that high-grade survivors are scarce because most went straight into circulation and suffered decades of wear, scratches, and discoloration before collectors started pulling them aside, and the journey of these coins through the hands of millions of Americans gives them a sense of connection to the everyday life of the early 1950s. When the Korean War was ongoing, television was starting to dominate home entertainment, and the cost of a loaf of bread was just 16 cents, making the penny still quite useful. Yet now, over 70 years later, finding a mint-state 1951 penny with its original luster intact is a feat that requires either incredible luck in pocket change searching or a significant investment at a coin show or auction, and collectors often chase after full red examples graded MS65 or higher by PCGS or NGC, as these can push the value to or even beyond the $282 mark. and part of the thrill is that such coins could still theoretically be hiding in old jars, inherited collections, or forgotten bank rolls waiting to be discovered, making it the perfect target for treasure hunters and history buffs alike, because every coin has a story, and the 1951 wheat penny story is one of craftsmanship, mass production, human error, and preservation against the odds, and it serves as a reminder that value can come from the smallest and most overlooked objects if you know what to look for, whether that's the sharpness of the wheat stalks on the reverse, the absence of contact marks on Lincoln's cheek, the brilliance of the copper surface, or the peculiarities of a mint mark that tell of a busy engraver's hand decades ago. And these little details not only determine value but also weave together the narrative of America's coinage heritage, where each cent is a miniature piece of art, a tangible artifact of its time, and a potential jackpot for the observant. And as more collectors enter the hobby, driven by viral videos, online communities, and the thrill of the hunt, coins like the 1951 wheat penny will only grow in fame and desirability, because while there may be millions out there, the combination of condition, rarity, and story will always set a few apart as true treasures. So whether you're sifting through change, exploring flea markets, or bidding in heated online auctions, keep your eyes open for that shiny or uniquely flawed 1951 wheat penny, because it could turn out to be one of those rare survivors worth $282 or more, a perfect blend of history and value resting in the palm of your hand. And if you've enjoyed uncovering the hidden wealth and fascinating history of this iconic coin, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and join us for more incredible coin stories that prove big treasures really do come in small packages. Next, today we are going to dive into the captivating story of the 1944 wheat penny, a coin that in some cases has fetched as much as $472 due to its unique errors, minting mistakes, and rare variations that make it stand out from the millions of ordinary wheat pennies produced in the mid-20th century. And as we explore the details, you'll learn not only what makes this particular coin valuable but also how to spot similar treasures so you can potentially turn a humble 1-cent piece into something worth hundreds of dollars. And to fully appreciate the significance of the 1944 wheat penny, we have to set the stage historically, because 1944 was right in the middle of World War II, and the United States Mint was under pressure to conserve strategic metals for the war effort, which had already led to the production of steel cents in 1943 instead of the usual copper. But by 1944 the Mint returned to using copper alloy for cents, which came from recycled shell casings from the war, making these coins literally forged from the remnants of battle. And while the standard 1944 penny is common, certain rare mistakes during production created coins that collectors are willing to pay big money for, and the most famous among them are the 1944 steel cents, which were accidentally struck when leftover zinc-coated steel planchets from 1943 somehow got mixed into the 1944 production run, resulting in a handful of steel cents dated 1944 that are now incredibly scarce and can command sky-high prices. But even within the copper 1944 pennies there are other errors and varieties worth noting, such as doubled dies where the coin's design appears doubled due to a misalignment in the hubbing process, with doubling often visible on the date, the word liberty, or the motto I in God we trust, and such coins can be worth far more than face value depending on the clarity and extent of the doubling. Another variety is the repunched mint mark, especially on coins struck at the Denver D or San Francisco S mints, where the mint mark was punched into the die more than once at slightly different angles, creating a ghost-like shadow of a second mint mark that's highly sought after by specialists. And there are off-center strikes as well, where the blank planchet wasn't properly seated in the press, causing part of the design to be missing and a large blank crescent to appear on the coin, with value increasing as the degree of misalignment grows while still showing a full date. Plus, there are clipped planchets, where a portion of the metal blank is missing due to a misfeed in the blanking press, giving the coin a crescent-shaped cut that clearly happened at the mint, and broad strikes, where coins are struck outside the retaining collar resulting in a stretched and flattened design, as well as die cracks and cuds, which are raised lines or blobs of metal caused by damaged dies during striking, adding character and collectability. And let's not forget about transitional Errors, where planchets from one year's composition are used in another year's production, and for 1944 this can include rare instances where leftover steel planchets from 1943 were mistakenly used instead of copper, producing a steel 1944 penny that is a genuine rarity. And when authenticated by reputable grading companies like PCGS or NGC, these errors become even more desirable, often selling for hundreds of dollars, with pristine uncirculated examples fetching the highest premiums. And condition plays a huge role here, because coin grading ranges from heavily worn good condition to flawless mint state, and a common 1944 penny in poor condition might only be worth a few cents. But an era coin in high grade can skyrocket in value, and while most 1944 pennies were struck in copper, the fact that wartime production involved recycled ammunition and shell casings gives them historical significance, meaning even without errors they appeal to collectors who value their connection to World War II history. But the real money lies in the error types, and knowing how to spot them requires a careful eye, often using a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to inspect details, because tiny doubling, subtle mint mark repunches, and slight off-center strikes can be easy to miss, yet they can turn an ordinary-looking cent into something worth far more. And the thrill for collectors is that these coins are still out there in circulation, in change, in collections, in flea markets, and in coin rolls from the bank, waiting to be discovered by someone with the knowledge to recognize their significance. So if you're going through a batch of pennies, pay close attention to the date and look for that distinctive 1944 mark. Check the metal with a magnet to see if it's steel instead of copper, examine the lettering for doubling, and scrutinize the mint mark for signs of repunching, and if you find something unusual, get it authenticated before selling, because the coin market rewards confirmed rarities. And while not every 1944 penny will make you rich, the special ones, those with striking errors, unusual compositions, and top condition, can reach values like $472 or more depending on collector demand and auction competition, and when you consider that these coins started life as humble 1-cent pieces, the idea that they can be worth hundreds today is both thrilling and inspiring, showing how history, minting quirks, and collector passion combine to create incredible stories hidden in plain sight. And this is why coin hunting has become such a popular and rewarding hobby. Because every coin has a story, and sometimes, that story can put serious money in your pocket. So keep your eyes open, keep searching, and remember that the next big discovery might be just a coin jar away. And if you enjoyed learning about the 1944 wheat penny and its fascinating errors, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join us on future adventures into the world of rare coins where history and treasure meet. Now in this episode we're focusing on the 1951 wheat penny, a coin that on the surface might look like just another small piece of mid-century American change, but that, thanks to certain errors and production quirks, can command prices up to $285 in the collector's market, turning what might otherwise be dismissed as a simple 1-cent coin into something truly worth hunting for. So let's take a closer look at why this particular coin has caught the attention of collectors, dealers, and everyday people who suddenly realize that the little copper coin in their pocket might be worth far more than its face value, starting first with the fact that the 1951 wheat penny belongs to the Lincoln Wheat Cent series, a design that ran from 1909 to 1958 and features the familiar bust of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse with the 2 wheat stalks framing the reverse, giving the coin its nickname. And while 1951 pennies were produced in large quantities at 3 different mints, Philadelphia with no mint mark, Denver with a D, and San Francisco with an S, the value spike for certain examples isn't just about the year or mint mark but about the mistakes that happened during the minting process, mistakes which today's collectors call mint errors, and which can include doubled dies, off-center strikes, die cracks, repunched mint marks, and even wrong planchet errors, all of which add to a coin's rarity and desirability. And in the case of the 1951 wheat penny, some of the most valuable ones are those that exhibit strong double die obverse where letters in Liberty, or the motto, "In God We Trust," appear slightly shifted or overlapped due to the die receiving a doubled impression during its preparation, giving a ghostly or shadowed look to the text, something that sharp-eyed collectors love because it is both visually striking and indicative of a genuine minting mishap. And another popular error for this date is the repunched mint mark, especially for the 1951D and 1951S pennies, where the D, or S, was originally punched into the die in one location and then struck again in a slightly different position, producing a shadowed or doubled mint mark that can be seen even without magnification in some cases. And while repunched mint marks might seem minor to a casual observer, they are a recognized category of collectible error and can raise the value of the coin substantially when well defined. Then there's the off-center strike error, which happens when the blank planchet is not properly aligned under the press and the design is struck off to one side, leaving part of the coin's surface blank and part of the design cut off, and the degree of off-center striking matters a lot to value, with something around 10% off-center being modestly collectible but 50% or more off-center while still showing the date being extremely valuable. While another category that exists for some 1951 wheat pennies is the die crack or die break error, where a damaged or worn die develops a crack that transfers a raised line or blob to the struck coin, sometimes called a cud, if it's a larger chunk near the rim. And although such flaws were unintended at the mint, they now serve as unique fingerprints for collectors who seek out specific varieties, and the rarest of all might be wrong planchet errors, which could occur if a 1951 cent was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination or even a foreign coin, resulting in an unusual size, weight, or metal composition that stands out instantly to an experienced eye. And these kinds of errors are so rare that when they come to auction they can fetch many times even the $285 level. But for the average person, the $285 figure typically comes from high-grade coins with one or more attractive errors combined with strong eye appeal, original mint luster, and minimal wear. Meaning that condition is just as important as the error itself, and this is why grading plays such a key role in determining value. Coins graded MS, mint state, by professional services like PCGS or NGC will always bring stronger prices than circulated examples, and in some cases a flawless error coin in MS65 or higher could be the centerpiece of a collection. So if you think you might have a 1951 wheat penny, it's important to examine it closely under good lighting, ideally with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, checking not only for the obvious things like doubling or off-center strikes but also subtle clues like unusual spacing in the lettering, slight shifts in mint-mark position, or raised lines that indicate die cracks. And it's equally important to avoid cleaning the coin, since doing so can drastically reduce its collector value, as natural patina and surfaces are prized in numismatics. And when it comes to market demand, the Lincoln Wheat series in general enjoys strong interest because it spans an important period in U.S. history, from the early 20th century through the post-war era, and many people who collected pennies as children still feel nostalgic for these coins, driving demand decades later, which means that even common-date wheat cents in average condition have some collector base. But when you add in a recognized error, a better grade, and the story of mid-century minting quirks, suddenly a coin like the 1951 can break far above the ordinary price range and reach into the hundreds. And this is why dealers, hobbyists, and even treasure hunters who go through rolls of pennies from banks are constantly on the lookout for 1951s with something unusual about them, because they know that even if 99% of the coins they see are ordinary, that 1% can be a jackpot, and it's this possibility that keeps the hunt exciting, fueling the modern treasure hunt for error coins. So in summary, the 1951 wheat penny's potential value of $285 is the result of a perfect storm of factors: scarcity in certain error varieties, visual distinctiveness of those errors, high grade, preservation, and ongoing collector demand for wheat cents in general. And while not every 1951 penny will be worth more than face value, those with mint errors like doubled dies, repunched mint marks, off-center strikes, die cracks, or wrong planchets, especially when found in excellent condition, are exactly the kinds of coins that make this hobby so exciting and rewarding. And knowing what to look for transforms an everyday coin jar into a potential treasure chest, so keep your eyes open. Check your change, And if you enjoy learning about the hidden value in coins like this, make sure to stay tuned for more deep explorations into the world of numismatics, rare finds, and the fascinating stories behind the smallest pieces of metal that carry some of the biggest historical and monetary surprises. And remember to like and subscribe so you never miss the next coin worth far more than anyone would expect. Last, today's deep dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of coin collecting, where we unravel the mystery, history, and value behind a small yet remarkable piece of American numismatic heritage, the 1945 wheat penny. A coin that on the surface seems like just another cent from the mid-20th century, but in reality holds a hidden potential value of around $342 due to its errors, mistakes, and unique features that make it a sought-after treasure for collectors around the globe. And, as we explore this incredible piece of history, you'll see how a simple penny minted at the tail end of World War II could become an object of such significant value and intrigue. Beginning with the fact that the 1945 wheat penny was part of the long-running Lincoln cent series first introduced in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday. A design by Victor David Brenner that retained the iconic wheat ears on the reverse until 1958, and during this particular year, the United States Mint was producing billions of coins under wartime conditions, with copper being the main metal for cents once again after the famous steel cent experiment of 1943, yet the turbulent economic and production environment meant that occasional mistakes crept into the minting process, creating the rare and highly collectible era coins that we'll discuss in detail, from double dies to off-center strikes, from clipped planchets to repunched mint marks, each of which could drastically influence the coin's market value and desirability. So let's start by considering the sheer volume of 1945 wheat pennies produced, over 1 billion from the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints combined, which might make you think that finding something rare among them is impossible. Yet in the world of numismatics, rarity often arises not from low mintage but from production anomalies that slip past quality control, and with the equipment of the time being more prone to slight misalignments and human error, 1945 saw its share of such mistakes. For instance, one of the most famous varieties is the 1945 double die obverse, in which the lettering, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the date itself appear with a distinct doubling effect caused by a misalignment during the hubbing process of the dies. And while mild doubling may add only a modest premium, strong examples with clear separation in the letters can command hundreds of dollars even in circulated grades, which is part of why certain 1945 wheat pennies can reach the $342 mark. Then there's the fascinating phenomenon of repunched mint marks, particularly for the Denver D and San Francisco S issues, as back then mint marks were manually punched into the working dies, leaving room for slight errors where the punch was applied more than once in slightly different positions, creating the RPM effect that collectors adore, with examples such as D/D or S/S varieties fetching much higher prices than regular strikes, and these errors are often small enough to be overlooked by casual observers, meaning that a coin sitting in a jar or old album for decades might hold hidden value simply because of this detail. Another major error type for the 1945 wheat penny is the off-center strike, where the coin blank, or planchet, is not properly seated in the press when the dies strike, resulting in a design that is partially missing and a large blank crescent of metal on the edge, with the value depending on the percentage of the off-center and whether the date remains visible, as coins with 50% or more off-center yet a full date can be extremely valuable. Then we have clipped planchets, a mistake that occurs when the strip of metal from which blanks are punched overlaps with the previously punched area, leading to a curved clip on the finished coin, and although minor clips might only bring small premiums, dramatic curved or straight clips, especially in combination with other errors, can push a coin's value into the hundreds. And speaking of dramatic, 1945 also has a number of broad strike errors, where the collar that normally contains the coin's diameter is missing during the strike, allowing the metal to spread wider and create a coin with an unusual, flattened look, again something that can be quite collectible when well centered and showing full detail. All of these mechanical errors are fascinating enough, but there's also the possibility of transitional or wrong planchet errors, which though rare, did occur in this era when planchets of the wrong metal or size were accidentally fed into the press, and while the 1945 wheat penny was intended to be struck in a bronze alloy of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, some anomalies exist where coins appear on planchets intended for foreign denominations or with unusual metal content. And such rare pieces can command astounding sums, far beyond $342, yet even minor deviations in weight or composition can catch the eye of dedicated collectors and bring strong prices, and this is why careful examination, preferably under magnification and sometimes with metal composition testing, is so important when evaluating these coins. Another aspect adding to the value of the 1945 wheat penny is its condition, because like all coins, grade matters immensely. And while a common worn example in good or fine condition might be worth only a few cents, the same coin in uncirculated mint state with vibrant original luster can fetch dozens or even hundreds of dollars, and when you combine high grade with an error or variety, you have the perfect recipe for a coin to hit that $342 price point or higher. Especially at auctions where enthusiastic bidders compete for quality. The historical backdrop also adds allure, as 1945 was the year World War II ended, making coins from this time a tangible link to one of the most significant moments in modern history, and many collectors are drawn to the idea of owning a piece of everyday commerce from the era when soldiers returned home, industries shifted from wartime to peacetime production, and the American economy began its post-war boom. Each 1945 wheat penny passed through countless hands during that transformative period, adding layers of human history to its numismatic story. Now imagine finding one with a bold double die or crisp repunched mint mark in an old family collection. That's the thrill that keeps treasure hunters searching, and with so many varieties, the challenge becomes knowing what to look for, such as examining the date and lettering closely for doubling, checking the mint mark for signs of repunching, feeling the edges for clips, and observing the overall shape for broad strikes or off-centers. And while some errors are obvious, others require knowledge and patience to spot, which is why numismatics is as much an art as a science, yet the payoff can be substantial. Not just in monetary terms but in the satisfaction of rescuing a rare piece from obscurity. And because many of these coins still circulate in collections, flea markets, estate sales, and even the occasional change jar, there's always the possibility of stumbling upon a sleeper worth far more than face value. In conclusion, the 1945 wheat penny's potential value of $342 is not a random number but the result of a combination of historical significance, condition, rarity of errors, and collector demand, and the excitement comes from the fact that this value can be unlocked by anyone with a keen eye and curiosity for coins. So whether you're an experienced collector or just starting out, take the time to examine those old wheat pennies carefully, because you never know when a small, copper coin from the end of World War II might reveal itself to be a hidden gem of American history worth big money. And if you enjoyed this journey into the world of rare coins and the stories they tell, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join us for more fascinating explorations of the treasures hiding in plain sight all around us.